All right, you emailed me your body language questions, and I'm going to answer them. Here's the first one. What is the first move a psychopath makes? That's a great question. Okay, here you go. The first move that a psychopath will make is this. They're going to try to make you like them a lot. And that's the way you'll feel when you meet one. You'll feel like you've met a kindred spirit, somebody you can't believe you've lived your whole life without meeting this person up to this point. Okay? Here's how they do it. They will mimic you. Not like every move you make as in matching and mirroring, but they will match you. And by that, I mean they will say what you say. They'll use the style of words you use. If you use a lot of big words, they're going to use a lot of big words. And they're going to use words similar to the words you're using when you talk. They're going to listen to you for a few minutes, and they're going to figure out what kind of personality, type, and style you are. And they're going to copy that. And you're going to be seeing you in that person. So that's what you want to look for. In other words, you want to look for you in that person. Sounds weird, sounds odd and crazy, but that's what you're looking for. As you talk about music, listen to what they talk about, music styles that you talk about. Do they absolutely love them too? When you talk about plays, they may not know anything about plays. They'll give you a glib answer about a play or plays. So, but you'll still feel like that they're into it. And we have something in common. So far, you got two things in common, music and plays. It happens quickly, but they'll be mirroring your body language as well. Not heavily, not like when you do this, they're going to do that too. Automatically, they'll ease into it, but they're going to figure out what kind of personality type and style you are. And they're going to copy that, and they're going to show you that, because basically you're seeing yourself in them. And it's all the information they pick up from you in those first few minutes they talk to you. Watch how much they listen. Pay attention to how much the person listens to you. Then once you recognize that the person's listening to you, listen to what they start talking about. That's what you need to look for. You need to look for you in that person, okay? Because they're just going to be reflecting what you give them. In other words, they're collecting it, moving it around, structuring it a little bit differently, and then giving it back to you. So you feel like there's a connection there. It's really important. I know it's a little tough to get your head around. That's the way they do it. That's the first move of a psychopath, is they'll be you. You'll see and hear you in that person. So that's what you want to look for. Very important. All right. Next question. When lying, do people move more or less? Well, they move less. Reason being, when someone tells you, they give you a deceptive answer, they're thinking about that and they're watching you. That's why they're not going to break eye contact. Most people are under the impression that someone lies to you, they're being deceptive, they're going to break eye contact before they start talking to you. No, because their brain wants to keep an eye on you to make sure you believe them. Think about that. That's why they don't break eye contact. They're watching you. Their brain is keeping an eye on you to make sure that their story is working. And if it's not working, they're going to start adding those qualifiers. So, and they don't move as much because there's inner dialogue going on up here. They're thinking about what they're going to say. They're structuring their answer to you. And whatever you say back, they've got to have an answer for that too. That's why it's important to keep asking questions. And you'll see that inner dialogue going on. You'll see their illustrators. I'm illustrating when I say, I'm not doing that because when I did that, because that's my brain emphasizing specific words and phrases, like I did just then, specific words and phrases. There's a guy named Albert Vray. Look him up, because he's the one that did the studies that showed the illustrators almost disappear when someone's being deceptive, quite often. Not every time, but most of the time. So people don't move as much when they're lying because they've got a lot going on up here, and that takes away from the illustrators and the facial expressions and all kinds of things that should come out naturally and normally. So that's why women get that weird feeling, because they know it doesn't look right. The situation, they don't know why it's not right, but something's not right. That's part of the woman's intuition thing that I'm always talking about. So that's why people don't move as much when they're lying to you. All right, next up, I've had a burning question for too long. I understand that crossed arms is a sign of being closed off. However, I cross my arms when I'm in pain. I live in chronic pain. Would the difference between the two be something you would spot? Look, when someone crosses their arms, it doesn't mean that they're turned off to you or the situation or they're closed off or whatever. That doesn't mean that at all. Sometimes it might possibly, but most of the time when someone's talking, they cross their arms, or when you're talking, they cross their arms. It's more comfortable for them. It's just more comfortable to cross your arms. They may be cold. There's a million reasons someone may cross their arms, but it's a huge thing people see. And so they automatically go, oh, and that's why when you Google things, they go, when the arms are crossed mean this for sure. And that's an absolute. Okay. Remember, we don't listen or believe in absolutes. For example, oh, he scratched his nose, so he's lying. Or one shoulder shrug went up, and so that means he's lying. These things don't mean you're lying. Those are just cues, deceptive cues. And when you see one of them, don't even think about it. But when you start seeing a cluster of those, 2, 3, 4 of them, maybe 5 in one setting, if you see someone back up a little bit and you see their eyes flutter like that, and then as they answer, that one shoulder goes up and the chin goes towards the shoulder, you can say, you know what? I think that might be deceptive. Let me ask some more questions around that so I can get down to the bottom of this and see what's going on. Quite often you'll see when the stress level rise, when you start asking questions, you'll see more cues along with them. Okay. So, and that's when you'll see the illustrators start disappearing and they'll get still as you keep asking questions. So it's important to keep asking questions, but just because somebody crosses their arms, I don't even really count that. Yeah, it could be a barrier. Sometimes it is. You could barrier yourself from someone. And a barrier is anything you use to put something between you and the other person. Any kind of thing that makes space. It could be a can. It could be anything that the person puts between you and them. You have to pay attention to that because everyone you know and you are probably under the impression it means something. So I would suggest not doing it if you don't have to, but if you're uncomfortable, cross your arms, just it'd be okay. You'll be fine doing that. Don't worry about that. Can you see the psychopathic stare in pictures? I know a couple of people who in pictures, even when smiling, they have this eerie look in their eye, almost like a blank stare, but it's not. It's almost scary looking even when they're smiling. Is this the psychopathic stare? We've gone over the psychopathic stare quite often on here. And no, that's not the psychopathic stare. The psychopathic stare happens by accident. They don't know they're doing it. They have no idea they're doing that. Do you know why? Because when a person's looking at you at a bar or a restaurant or whatever from across the room, they keep looking at you as you look at them and they don't look away. You know how that makes you uncomfortable when somebody does that to you? It doesn't make them uncomfortable. Doesn't make them uncomfortable because they don't have the proper equipment in their brain to make that work. Okay? A psychopath. So that's the psychopathic stare. It happens by accident. The parietal lobes and the frontal lobe, those things aren't connected properly. The amygdala aren't functioning properly, or they're missing, along with those other problems as well. But the brain isn't connecting properly, to make a long story short. So they don't feel any empathy. So they don't know what it's like to feel that way. They don't know that it's kind of weird to keep looking. They won't look away. Try staring at somebody in public. Just look at them too long. When they look at you, see how long it takes you to look away, because it's really uncomfortable. But psychopaths don't feel that. They don't have that feeling. They don't get it because their brain doesn't work properly. So they don't have the proper equipment to let them feel those feelings. I hope I got that across, because we talk about it all the time on here. People are all the time asking about it. And I see it in the comments, and they're still not straight on that, sure about how that works. But that's what it is. It happens by accident. They don't even realize they're doing it. It's not a mean face or some eerie looking thing. No, they're just looking at you. That's a psychopathic stare. All right. Hope that helped. Is it possible for a person to fake a lack of empathy their whole life without people close to them noticing they actually have it? Yeah, you could fake not having empathy. People do it all the time. Tough guys do it all the time. People are, the macho guys, they always do it all the time. I know a guy, I'll tell you this. I know a tough guy, and he has a little dog at his house, okay? And I've always seen him just blow this dog off like, it's nothing or whatever, not pay attention to it or anything, right? Because he's a tough guy. And he's going to kill me when he hears this. I'm going to tell it anyway. So anyway, I'm at this guy's house, right? And the dog is walking around the kitchen and you know, the dog's adorable, just cute as a little button. You can't hardly stand not touching or picking it up or anything. Everybody wants to kiss on it and the whole thing, right? So this guy goes, okay, I won't say the dog's name. So I'm going to take it to the basement, you know, and get her out of the way. I'm like, okay. So he's gone for a few minutes, right? And it's just me and him at the house, really. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to go down there. I know him, so I can go down in the basement. It's cool. So I go down there, and it's not a basement. It's like a TV room kind of thing for kids and stuff. And I go down there, and he's in the floor. He's got his knees are down on the floor, and the dog is on the couch. Okay, this tough guy who nothing bothers him, doesn't, you know, always ignores the dog and everything. This is so bad. He calls the dog. He's got the dog by the head like that, and he's kissing on its little head. And he goes, and you know what he called it? Smushy Pippikins. He's called his dog Smushy Pippikins. Dude, I know you're watching this, and I'm sorry, man. I'm not going to say who you are, but I'm not going to let you live that down. Now that I've said this, I know you're watching. I'm not, dude. Next time I see you, I'm going to ask you how Smushy Pippikins is doing. Man. Okay. So yeah, it is possible to fake it and not show it, because this guy does it all the time, you know, which was news to me about this guy, because I always thought, well, he is that guy. He doesn't care about little dogs or anything like that, but he did care about Smushy Pippikins. Oh, man. All right. Please explain why President Biden said Medicare during the debate. And please make it easy for a regular person to understand. Okay. When a person sees something, let's say a tree, okay, their brain's going to see that's going to go through 4 or 5 things very quickly and say, okay, that's a plant. It's not a flower. It's not a weed. It's not a bush. Okay, it's a tree. And they'll say tree, right? But someone who has a cognitive problem like dementia or Parkinson's-related dementia, that kind of thing, their brain doesn't work that way because things are being turned off in there. It's not, their brain isn't functioning properly. Neurologically, they're not on. So they'll see something like that. They'll see a tree and they want to say, okay, well, look, a tree. But they'll say, as their brain goes through the 4 or 5 things, it'll go, okay, there's a flower, no, it's a bush, it's a weed, no, it's a car. They'll go, car. They won't mean to say car. They don't want to say car, but that's what comes out. Okay, because as that problem progresses and the brain gets worse and it doesn't communicate as well with itself, that's what happens. All kinds of things start slowing down. So that's why he said that. He didn't want to say that thing about Medicare, but that's what came out. You know, as he was searching for the words to say, that's what happens. Well, that's what happened to him that night. So I'm under the impression that's what happened that night. I know your favorite person to interrogate is a con or a grifter. How can I tell if someone is conning me? All right. Most people think that a con, when they meet one, they're going to try to con them out of something, or they'll be making a deal and they'll be trying to con it, and they'll be able to spot it because quite often the deal is too good. You know, you always hear that thing where you go, if it's too good to be true, it's not good, you know, and people think they understand what that is. So what happens is this: a con knows you know that, and that's not the only way somebody cons you is trying to do that. They'll do things like this, and the Russians, when they negotiate, they'll pull things like this as well. The person will come in and let's say that you sell Polar Springs, Polar Seltzer, whatever that is, right? And they're $140 a piece, right? When you got like cases of that stuff, just like hundreds of cases of it, right? The only thing this con wants, the grifter, is they want one of these. That's it. Just want the one. So what they'll do is they'll come in and go, hey, listen, so here's what I want to do. I want to buy 14 cases of this, right? Nah, I'm going to buy 20 cases of it because that's what we really need. The finances are like this. We're going to pay for it. Like, can I have this one? Is that cool? Okay, great. Thanks. I'll take that one. So we want, and they'll go on like they want this big, huge thing when all they really want is the one thing. See what I'm saying? So they'll come in and make it look like they want something completely different than what they really want. So when you hear things like that, you see little moves like that being made, focus on that. Pay attention to what's happening, because that person's probably trying to take advantage of you. That's just one con. So that's one good thing to watch out for there. So that's what I would suggest, because I deal with them all the time. And that's one of my favorites, is seeing when that happens. So there you go. Hope that helps. Can AI be a psychopath? No. I know why you'd think that, because everybody's under the impression that AI is this big brain that's somewhere and it's thinking things up and doing. All AI is a collection of information. That's all it is, artificial intelligence. It's neither artificial nor is it intelligent. So the name of it is weird as well, is off. So it just collects information. It doesn't think anything up. That's why you can say, okay, I want to write a study on aspirin. You may not know anything about aspirin. If you don't, that's fine. You just go to ChatGPT, write a study on aspirin, add these specific things to it, make it sound like someone who is fairly smart. Let's say whatever your IQ thing is you want to put in it, or whatever grade. Then make it kind of funny, make it witty or whatever. So it takes all the information from the internet that have been pumped into it, and it collects that data, and it pumps out what you want, squirts out that paper you want that talks about aspirin, paper on aspirin. So it's not a psychopath. There's nothing in there. It's just information. Whatever's been loaded into it, that's what gets squirted out. It's just arranged differently. It's not creating anything. It's just moving stuff around, things that already exist, in other words. So it's not artificial, and it's not intelligent. It's just collecting information. It's not creating anything. It looks like it is, but it's not. So no, AI isn't and cannot be a psychopath. Hope that helps. If you are unable to lie or convince others of lies, can you learn to lie? Yeah, you did when you were a little kid, and you learned you could say something and people would believe it, even though it wasn't true. You could say whatever your lie was as a child. And if it didn't work, you'd say, okay, I'll try this. And you'll try something else. And you'll try a different delivery with a lie, depending on what it is. So yeah, you can learn to lie. Little children learn to lie. You learned how to lie. Everybody learns how. And you learn by watching other people and listening to other people. That's what happens. So yeah, you can learn to lie. You can learn to get really good at it. Boy, I know some that are just fantastic at it. And it's and to be able to figure out that person's lying, that's the hard part. The lying part's fairly easy, But yeah, you can learn to, and you can learn to be a good one too. I'm being stalked. Is there a way to change my behavior to turn the stalker off, to leave me alone? No. Listen to me. Here's what you want to do. If you have a stalker for real, don't focus on that. What you want to do is go to the police. Okay, as corny as that saying, go to the police. You call them up and say, look, I've got a stalker. Who do I talk to? And they've got somebody there that you'll be able to talk to, and they'll tell you exactly what to do. Because what you want to do, you don't want to wait too long so they do something like try to get in the house or something. He's been stalking me for a year. Really? Can you prove it? Why do you know? Well, you have to believe me. Really? And that person's going to say, I never did do that or whatever. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to make a record of all these things that happen, and they'll tell you how to do that. Okay, when you go to the police, they'll say, here's what you need. You take pictures, look, see what's happening on your Ring camera if you have one of those. If you're in the store and you see them, get a picture of them in the store or video or whatever. If you think you see them, take a picture of their car driving by, whatever it is. You've got to start collecting information and a record of that. Okay, so don't worry about body language. You go talk to somebody about it. Somebody's stalking you, that's a big deal. Okay, so don't goof around with that. You get right on that. Tomorrow when you get up, or today, you get on that. You get on that right away, and you go talk to them, tell them what's up. It's nothing to goof around with. So get on that. What if a person I'm talking to is turned 90 degrees and with crossed arms around his chest when replying or sharing information? So in other words, his back's to you and his arms are crossed, but he's talking to you at the same time. It sounds like the worst spy that ever walked the earth, or somebody who doesn't respect you, maybe, because they won't even look at you when they talk to you. I don't know what the situation is. It sounds to me like they don't want you to have the information, or they don't respect you probably if they're doing that, because they can't see you that way, I wouldn't think. So I think that's probably what's happening. Either the worst spy in the world or somebody that doesn't respect you, most likely, depending on what the situation is. I'm not there. I can't see it. That's not a whole lot of information, but that's what it sounds like anyway. What specific body language cue do we see most often every day? The smile. That's the lie you see the most every day. The deception you see the most every day is a smile. Because because somebody's smiling at you doesn't mean they're happy to see you or glad to see you or anything. They smile because socially you're supposed to. And that's why they do, right? So when you see someone, the first thing you see is they smile, especially when you're out in public. A lot of people don't smile when they look at you. They'll just look at you and look away, and that's okay a lot of times. But when you're talking to somebody at a store, somebody selling you something, anybody you first see, you haven't seen in a while, you smile. So that's why you see the most body language-wise every day is a facial expression, and it's the smile. So thank you for providing the psychopath test for us to take. Were those questions your own adaptation of Hare's work or his own? If so, where did you source it? Where did you source it from? Yeah. Okay. Here's what the psychopath test was that we did on here a couple weeks ago. Okay. It's the Hare psychopathy checklist is what it is. Google that. And there'll be different places you can get that. Okay. But don't just get it from somebody's, oh, here's the psychopath, checklist. The Hare psychopathy checklist. That's what you want. Okay, get that. Because what we did on there, and I explained it at the first, you don't ask those questions to a psycho or to anyone. You don't say, "Are you glib?" Because they'll say, "What? No, I'm not glib." Because a lot of people in the comments were like, "Well, why wouldn't a psychopath lie about these?" Well, they would, as you would, if you were asked those questions and you didn't feel good about answering them, or it made you sound bad. Okay, of course, psychopath. Anybody would lie about some of those. Some of those are pretty personal, but you don't ask the questions like they're written out like that. That's the question you want answered, but you ask it in a different fashion. Okay. For example, if you want to find out if someone's glib, you don't ask them if they're glib. You ask them questions and you see how they answer them about things they probably wouldn't know about. And you see, and it's going to take more than one question to do that. I think we got it done in 20 minutes or something, 20, 25 minutes when we did it online, right? But keep in mind, you're just answering the question and then checking off a 0, 1, or a 2 in there. Sometimes it takes up to a year to properly diagnose someone who might be a psychopath. To diagnose one properly, okay? So, but when you're in an interrogation or something, you don't ask questions in that fashion that they were on the test that we took, right? That we did online or a couple weeks ago. But you ask questions, you want to get that information that question is asking, but you ask questions around that question in different forms to get that information from them, okay? I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, let me know and I'll go even deeper into it. But yeah, there were Hare's questions, and not my own adaptation of them. That's exactly what's on the checklist. Okay, but you just have to ask them a specific way or different ways. What does it mean when a person sits with their legs crossed and twirls their foot nonstop? That's an adapter. An adapter is anything you do, any repetitive motion or movement you do to get rid of that built-up stress or tension. Sometimes people sit there and do their hand like that, and that gets rid of that built-up stress or tension from whatever the stressful situation is. And they may not be stressed; they may just be bored, but which causes stress as well. So that person may just be bored out of their skull, sitting there waiting on something, or if they're talking to you, they may be relaxed, and just doing that because there's a little bit of tension somewhere, and they're just twirling their foot. So I wouldn't think it's anything bad. unless you're asking them about something that you think they might be being deceptive about. If they weren't doing it before you asked that and they start doing it, then you can say, okay, well, there's a cue. That's an adapter. They're adapting, trying to make things better for themselves, trying to soothe themselves. So maybe that's Hattie. It's Hattie. Maybe that's what they're doing, So it doesn't really mean anything huge or important, just them getting rid of that built up stress and tension. When I see a human in pain, there's no emotional empathy, only interest in seeing the person's response to the stimulus. On the other hand, I feel viscerally when I see an animal in pain. I'm autistic. Could I also be a psychopath? Got some good news for you. No, you couldn't be a psychopath feeling that way. 2 or 3 things show me that here. You're asking about it, which means you're probably a little bit worried about it. So no, psychopaths aren't going to worry about that. So we'll knock you out of the running right there. But even though you're autistic, but when you see someone who's in pain, that's a person in pain, you may not react to it the way other people would, non-autistic people would. Then that's fine, because you're autistic. There you go. There you have it. But when you see a little animal getting hurt or something, you do feel for that animal, and it does bother you. There you go again. Psychopaths don't do that. In fact, one of the things that you'll see in psychopaths is they're mean to animals, really mean. They're cruel. They're cruel to animals. And even from childhood, they're cruel. I mean, unbelievably cruel. I could tell you some stories. I won't. But they're unbelievably cruel to little animals. You don't have anything to worry about. Being autistic, I know those who aren't and don't know anyone who is. And since you were asking me this and you're autistic, I know you feel emotions as well, and you're very sensitive. Autistic people are extremely emotional. But normal people or people without autism, they don't understand what's happening there because they don't see the expressions we're used to seeing in a social situation from the autistic person. So that's why people are always like, what's up with that guy? He's odd. That's weird. But they can't help it. And you think, if I see that, I'm going to be. No, you won't, because you're not ready for it. And you don't realize that's happening, or that person's autistic, for a couple of minutes. You see, you're just seeing a person there when a situation or example comes up to deal with. That's when you see and go, oh, or you'll see them deal with somebody else. And you go, oh, that's odd. And you'll see that a couple of times, depending on the level of autism, on the scale that they're on. So, but a lot of times autistic people are lonely, because people think they're odd. Because to us, they are odd. Or to a normal person, they're odd because they don't do the things that we do. From an emotional perspective, they don't react the same way. So that's a real problem. So if you know someone who's autistic, be patient with them and know that they're probably lonely. A lot of them are, because nobody wants to connect with them because they don't know how. They don't want to be involved in that, quote, involved in that. So be really nice and be understanding. It's important that you are, because they can't help it, So, and I understand where you're coming from. I get it. And don't you worry a bit about that. You're not a psychopath. You're nowhere near one. I promise you. I promise you you're not. Okay? Now, if you want to learn more about psychopaths and you want to learn more about body language and behavior, you watch that video right there. If you have any questions about body language, you email me, bodylanguagequestions@gmail.com, and I'll get right on it.